Hello there, it is Deb and Beck, and welcome to Dare to Be You TV, our weekly show that we're always so excited to do.
We are.
So we've got some great stuff coming up on the show this week, but before we dive into that, as always, we'd like to share with you some of the things that we are up to, just in case you would like to join in. So right now, if I look out the window, it doesn't completely look like it, but it is summer. So
Yeah, someone forgot to tell the weather.
Yes, actually, it does look as if it's brightening up a little bit now. It's not as bad as it was earlier. But anyway, we are in summer school at the moment. So one of the things that Beck and I are really have had some real fun with, and we're really proud of what we have done with our relationship school. So because for me, for the longest time, it felt like I had no clue about relationships. I really struggled pretty much in most relationships I was in. And very topically today, one of the things we're going to talk about is other people. And other people felt like a real challenge to me. I didn't know how to do this whole relationship thing. And it felt like that wasn't something I'd ever learned at school. No one had ever told me how relationships work. I'd been left to work it out for myself, and turns out I got it pretty wrong, really. And I noticed that a lot of other people struggled in exactly the same way as I did, or some variation. It didn't look like they had new problems. It looked like they regurgitated the problems that I had had. And so did I do that a lot, to be fair. And so when Beck and I when we came across this understanding, and when that totally changed, when I had this, oh, that's how it works. Well, that makes total sense. And my relationship started getting healthy and happy and fulfilling and worthwhile. And I started to see the whole world differently. I thought, well, why don't I just teach people that? Because it's so simple, and so we created Relationship School. And at this moment, we are in summer school. So we're having a break from full-on Relationship School, but we've got summer school going on. And we would absolutely love you to join us for summer school. So we will put some information below this video that you can click on to find out about how to join us and how to be a part of that. Because if I say so myself, I think it's really great.
It's a fantastic program. And then Relationship School Live itself starts in September, so there's
just like school does. We start back in September.
Yes. And there's kind of lots and lots to see in there, so it would be great to have you with us. If you'd prefer to work kind of one-to-one with us, we also have mentoring programs, and that's something we've done a lot of work on, kind of reviewing what we offer, how we offer it, and what you get for mentoring. So they're incredibly, we have either a one-month package or a 3-month program, and they're fantastic programs with absolutely loads of stuff ram-packed in there for you. So if you'd like to know more about that, get in touch. We'll put some information below, or you can contact us and connect through the website daretobeYou.co.uk.
Absolutely. So let's dive into today's show and today's content. So living and learning. So each week, Beck and I share with you some of the things that we have been living and learning during the week. And for me this week, over the weekend, my daughter, who lives in London, she's still here as we speak, but she came down for a week to visit. And that's the first time that I have seen her since Christmas time, so last year. Because of everything that's been going on. And I know lots and lots of people are in a similar position to that, loved ones they haven't actually seen in the flesh for quite some time. And it's really been an interesting one, watching the world begin to open up again and being able to see those people that are so special to us and so close to us that we haven't seen for a good amount of time. And it's been really, what's been really fascinating for me is having all 3 of my children together now, and we've been out and been together, as I said, for the first time in a very, very long time. And it's been really interesting watching my son become my teacher in many, many ways. And that's what I really love about this understanding, the fact that it feels to me that other people are learning. They are, in whatever way. And sometimes, like with my son, it's been an inspiration to watch him have his own insights. And now I am able to watch how he is in the world and learn things from him in that way. And I've also noticed that other people are, and we will definitely go into this more later on in the show, but other people, whatever they're up to, whatever they're doing, I think that's for me this week, I've just seen how individual different people are there as a gift to me, to either see how I want to be in the world or how I don't want to be in the world, or to notice how I can be the same as them, notice how I want to be more like them or want to be. So for me, other people have just been amazing learning for me this week.
That's great. So my kind of living and learning this week has been around, I picked up quite some months ago, I think, a book called Mindfulness Journaling, because I'm always interested in kind of just exploring more and more what it is that can give me a better human experience. And I've seen time and again that starts from the inside out, but sometimes it's like, everything's on the table. We talk about that a lot. And sometimes it helps to have a pointer from the outside to kind of point us back inwards. And so I picked up this book some time ago, and we hadn't done anything with it. And just the other day, I decided to open it and have a little read of what some of the things are. And last night, the page that I was reading was on about kind of cleansing ourselves in the same way that, for most of us, we cleanse most days, most of the time, a shower,
I have a shower pretty much every day.
We wash our hands and face or whatever it might be, but we rarely
hand sanitizer at the moment.
Yeah, a lot at the moment, but we rarely cleanse our kind of internal spiritual, selves in some way. And so the book was kind of pointing to having a bit of a spiritual cleanse in a way. And it was kind of a meditation-y thing. And I read what it kind of advised to do. And I thought, I'll have a go at this. And I kind of lay down and started kind of thinking about internal cleansing, and it asked you to kind of think about a body of water, and I went to a place that I used to go to many years ago, and immediately it started bringing up memories and happy times that I'd had with friends and family there, and I was kind of reflecting on that, and I got quite lost for a minute in, I used to love going there. I used to love being part of this group of people and those friends and the conversations we had and the late nights we sat under the stars. And then I was kind of like, what was that feeling? What was it I loved about that? And I kind of went off into this, I kind of could see the feelings in my mind as to what it is I loved about that place and those people. And then what came to me was the conversation that we have, what we share here is, those feelings are available to me all the time, and it looks really like that place and those people and that those experiences were what gave me those feelings. And it was like, what kind of was going through my mind was, those feelings are available all the time. They must be, because they're mine. They're coming from inside of me. I don't have to be in that place. I don't have to be with those people. I don't have to be having those experiences. So what kind of came to me, what I was looking at and what I'm playing around with in my mind over the next few days is, how is that feeling available? How can it already be there? Because it looks so much like it's connected to those past experiences, to those places, but it can't be. That's what I talk about, what we share ever such a lot. So I'm just kind of living and learning, like my kind of almost challenge to myself over the next few days is to play around and see if I can have those same feelings and experiences and joy and laughter without having to go. It's probably about a 6 or 7 hour journey from here to go to the place I was thinking of last night, without having to go there, without having to, contact all the people I used to hang out with in that way and see if I can get them to join me there, which might be a bit more work than, I can do at the moment. Are those feelings actually available to me? Can I be having those same joyful experiences and that same enjoyment and peace and love that I could see when I went there in my mind? Is that possible? And I'm kind of just toying around with that, because it strikes me that I tell people all the time in these kinds of videos, those feelings are already yours, that experience is already yours. So I've sort of set myself the challenge, prove it then, Beck, prove that in that experience. So that was really good fun last night. I kind of had this whole reflection moment of, so this is, walk your talk, if you like. That was what was coming to me.
I remembered not long after I came across this conversation, being at a teaching, it was a class that I was at, and somebody in the class said, you're very good at talking the talk, but you're not very good at walking the walk. And that sparked something in me. I really saw that. I really saw. And I think many, many times with spiritual teachings and spiritual understandings, we can be very good. Sometimes if somebody asks us a question, we know what the answer is, or we know, what we should be doing, if you like. We know that. But actually doing it, actually walking the walk, is a whole different ball game. And I think one of the reasons that we do challenges, one of the reasons that a lot of what we do that for ourselves, it is like, okay, you're going to say that freedom is always available. Look and see if that is true for you, because very much for me, if it is true for me, what I know about human beings is that we're all on the same operating system. For all the conversations that we have with all people, if we point them back to the same place, like in form and in the human place, we're all different, but at that deeper level, there's somewhere where we're all the same. And so very much it's like, okay, like you say, if we're going to say to somebody, this, the peace and happiness is always available to you, then when I'm in the middle of a thought storm, when I'm in the middle of a place, it does not look peaceful here. Is that true? Is what we're saying not true? Then is there times when peace and love isn't available for me? And it is very much an exploration and getting curious. And I think like those kinds of things, I love doing that. And I guess that for me is the same. When I was sharing about the other people, that's what it is. It's like, if you say that about other people, is it true? When this person is irritating you, is there something there for you? And it is about getting curious, I guess, isn't it? And exploring for yourself. Yeah. So fabulous. So today's question is, does a healthy relationship really always start with me? And I think that's one of those things that again, if we go back to relationship school, one of the things that I was never ever taught, no one ever pointed me towards, was that relationships were, how they were playing out had everything to do with me and nothing to do with the other person. And I know that can be one of those, no, I don't get that, I can't see that. And partly here, very much that is what I would say around that is, be where you are with that, but get curious about it. And just, again, it is exploration, curiosity, see what you see. But what I have noticed, ultimately, when we're looking in a spiritual direction, what we begin to see is less and less separation, less and less me and you, less and less self and other. We come back together. So ultimately, what we are pointing towards is oneness. There's only one thing going on here. So if there is only one thing going on here, that means there is only me and my projection, I'm creating this in ultimately. And it's like, so how can relationships be about self and other, be about me and someone else, when there is no me and someone else? So if we kind of take that, and that isn't about, for me, that's not, I'm not saying that's what I experience moment to moment, because it really feels like I'm sitting here and Beck is sitting here. And it feels like there is going to be a person who isn't me listening to this at some point, hopefully. So so it's not that that's what I experience, but if that is true, and to me, truth is what sets us free. What I've noticed is the nearer to truth I get, the more peace, happiness, freedom, generosity, love, all of those things that I want, the nearer. It's like that hot and cold game we used to play when we were kids. And it feels like, you're closer to truth here, you're closer to, oh no, cold, moved away. And very much what I notice is the closer to truth I get, the more of those things that I want in my human experience show up. So for me, the exploration, the fun game, the little challenges, what I get curious about around this are, how can I get closer to that truth of oneness, of there only being one person here? And what I have noticed when I am in relationship to someone else and that person is irritating me or annoying me, or in the times when I feel like without them, they make me feel loved and wanted and whole and complete. And so I start to feel without them, I might lose that. Any of these things that I find in relationship, if I am curious and look, how can this be about me? What's going on here then? How can that be? It blows my mind what I find out, what insights I have for myself, what I see that makes sense to me. And my relationships absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, get healthier and happier. And I feel more peace and love in any given moment. And I know one of the things that we have talked about recently is the fact that statements close down our mind and questions open our mind. And so to me in this, it is that whole question, can a healthy relationship start with just me? If there's something going on here that really doesn't feel right, what happens if I bring that back to me? And that to me, if we will genuinely be curious about that, what will occur to us, what our wisdom will bring, what will happen in those moments can be mind-blowingly amazing. And we'll notice, what I saw for myself when I started playing around this is, you notice that you get to a place in your mind where a statement happens, and then it's like, if we add a question mark to that statement, if we turn that statement into a question, it opens our mind again, it gives us somewhere else to go. So that's kind of a bit of an invitation to play with it really and see what you see.
So what was kind of coming to me when you were sharing around the kind of oneness and the, what we start to see as we look in this direction is the separation that we experience isn't really there. What kind of came to me was the phrase, the really well-known saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Absolutely. You can
and
see
I'm gonna,
I'm
going to butcher that entirely and switch it up because, it fits with the question if I do that. Be the change you want to see in a relationship. And then I'm going to do exactly what Deb just said and make that a question, not a statement. How can you be the change you want to see in a relationship? And what kind of was occurring to me as that was kind of rolling through my mind, how can I butcher that amazing statement, make it a question, was an example that kind of comes to me recently. I was having a conversation with someone who was they'd been sharing a couple of times over the last few months, something they would like to do that I knew in my mind I didn't approve of. I didn't like that idea. And every time they'd said to me, oh, I might do this, I knew that I reacted in a way that was like, I really don't want you to. I don't think that's a great idea. Out loud, I said that to this person. And I knew when I did that, they didn't like that I'd said that. And we ended up in a conversation. We were having quite a beautiful day together, and we were in this very open space, and they sort of said to me, look, every time I say I'm thinking about doing this, you're very closed-minded. You don't like it. You're saying to me, don't do it. And that's not, I don't like that about you. I don't like that you're being like that with me. And what I kind of sat with it for a minute, and I said, yeah, I get that. And what I know that's my stuff, that I don't like what you're suggesting, and I'm sharing that in that moment. But I said, by asking me not to do that, you're now asking me to do something you can't do. Like, you're asking me to be different. And when you're saying this is a scenario you want to put yourself in, you can't be different either. So you're asking something of me that you can't do. And it's like, in any given moment, that's what we can do in a relationship. When we're kind of looking at someone and saying, you be different. A healthy relationship doesn't only start with me, it starts with you as well. You be different. You turn up differently. And that kind of statement that I butchered and turned it into, how can I be the change I want to see in a relationship? It's like the minute I'm asking someone else to be different, I be different. I find a way that I can be different. And what's very interesting to me is over the last week, a couple of times that person has said that same thing again. And I've gone, yeah, why not? See what comes to you, if that makes sense. Because I saw in that conversation we had not only were they asking me to be different, but I immediately was asking them to be different too.
That's what we do, isn't it?
Yeah,
and you can see that's where relationships
I don't want
struggle.
you to do that.
Yeah.
So be different. And then they were asking the same of me. So in that moment over the last week, a couple of times when they've shared again, I've gone, okay, don't ask them to be different. Ask you to be different. Mm. And I've kind of come back to me and gone, okay, yeah, if it makes sense to you to do that, then do it. That's fine. Go for it. If that is what is making sense to you. And I was different. And I really saw that the thing that changed there was not that other person. They may or may not do what they're talking about doing. I don't know. What was different was me. Inside me, I felt more peaceful with it.
Yeah.
I saw that I didn't need that person to be different. I could be peaceful in that moment that they're saying, I want to do this. And I'm going, please don't. I don't have to be in that uncomfortable feeling. I could go and find my own peace and just respond to that person in a different way. And so that kind of be the change you want to see in the world. How can you be the change
in a relationship?
Yeah,
I think that is beautiful. I think that is beautiful. And just get curious around that.
Yeah, that question mark, that open-minded question is the invitation here.
And I think that moves us on beautifully to our topic, smooth, yes, of other people. Because ultimately, the life that we live is incredibly paradoxical. And one of the things that I have definitely learned over the time that I have been looking in this direction, looking towards my spiritual nature, is that in the Western world, or certainly in the world I was brought up in, paradoxes are these things that can't happen. And we are very much pointed towards it's either this or it's that. And it doesn't feel as if there's a middle ground. And I think one of the reasons that I struggled so much with looking towards my spiritual nature is because it is incredibly paradoxical that we have a human experience of being an individual, and yet we are one. And I know some of the statements that we make regularly, like take responsibility whilst knowing you're not responsible, they're incredibly paradoxical statements. And so other people are a huge part of that paradox, because what we are pointing to, ultimately what we are pointing you towards here is oneness. And yet then we're saying, so how do we deal with other people? Okay, so there aren't any other people, how do we deal with them? And it's a real, it can tie us in knots. And I know for the longest time, that's what looking in this direction did. It tied me in knots. But what I've noticed is that beyond my senses, beyond my ears and my eyes and my nose and my mouth, beyond, smell and touch and taste, beyond how I experience this world, there is something more to me that totally gets paradoxes. It's totally fine with the paradoxical nature of who we are. And what I have seen is that when I just allow myself to move out of that space in my mind and just know that this bigger part of me exists, I can move seamlessly between being human and having other people around me and being in relationships and driving my car and talking on videos and running a business and living with other people, all the things that we do in the world of form. I can move seamlessly between that and then to my spiritual nature, where there is only oneness. And it feels like we are wired, we are built, it's within us to do that and to know how to do that. But it feels like we've taught ourselves not to, because we have looked so much to, we've really gone into that place of paradoxes can't be. You cannot be one and separate. You are either one or you are separate. You cannot be both of these things. And then my experience, I feel separate when I'm out in the world, and yet I can come to this place of oneness. So it hurts my head. It actually hurts my head when I try and work it out. But what I've really seen that has been incredibly helpful is when my head starts to hurt, I can just let that go and move back into somewhere beyond my senses, somewhere beyond form. And in that place, the ordinary stuff that I do in relationships, and that, you know, what Beck was saying, I would actually disagree that is a butchering of that statement. I think it is absolutely a beautiful, a really, really beautiful rearrangement of that statement. You know, taking it from a statement and turning it into a question. How can I be the change I want to see in a relationship? And I think when we very, very lightly with our heart, not necessarily too much with our head, but very lightly from a place of love and generosity and from our hearts, how do I do that? When we show up from that place, I just think crazy, beautiful, wonderful, amazing things happen out in the world, in our life, in that place where we are separate. And I want to add, because I know that some of you know that my backstory is that I was in an abusive relationship. And I can feel when I'm listening to this that there might have been times when I'm in, you know, when I was in that relationship and seeing that, I don't know, could it work there? Could it work there? And always be safe. Always do what makes sense to you to be safe. But honestly, hand on heart, I think when we show up from that, we know there is something in us that knows, even in those moments that might be labelled as the most dangerous, as the most difficult, nobody loses touch with their heart, with a deeper truth of who they are. And we can trust that. We can go there even in those moments.
And I think the kind of thing that comes to me then is, just before we came on this to record this, we were having a conversation about running before we can walk. And if it feels like that's running and you're at walking pace, you know, be at walking pace. Walk. That's perfect.
Absolutely.
And kind of when I shared at the beginning about my living and learning, and I was talking about kind of in my mind, I was going to a place that I've been to lots of times, and I was hanging out with people I'd hung out with lots of times, and they're friends, people I used to hang out with in my sort of teens and 20s, but I mostly don't have contact with anymore. And yet I was lying in bed last night, and I could remember the feelings. I could picture those people. I could, you know, get into that same space and that same feeling as though I was actually with them, as though I was actually in that place, as though they were having conversations with me, and, you know, that we were hugging or holding hands or walking to the beach together. And those feelings came up of being at peace, of being happy, of being joyful. And what kind of came to me as Deb was sharing them was like, that's a really good example of those other people weren't giving me those feelings because they're nowhere near me right now. They're, you know, all living in all sorts of different places. That group of friends that I used to spend a lot of time with, they're nowhere near where I am right now. So in those moments last night when I was lying in bed and remembering and reflecting, the feelings that were coming up were not coming from those other people because they just weren't there to be seen. And for me, that's kind of that's a really good example and something to play around with for yourself. Like, because sometimes I think we talk about other people and we say they, you know, they don't cause us to feel a certain way. That works both sides, you know, whether it's good feelings or bad feelings, if you like. You know, all of those good and nice feelings I was experiencing last night can't have been coming from those people because I haven't spoken to most of them for some years. And yet I was having those feelings. So for me, it's like, if you're not ready to run with this yet and you want a bit of a walking pace, play around with that. You know, notice that there's times when we can have those feelings and people are not even there.
It's funny, isn't it, how we can have an argument with somebody, or we can fall in love with someone or have an argument with someone who isn't even, you know, we could do that now with our partners and they're not even here.
And it's like, for me, that was kind of where I started in some of this conversation, was just seeing that in a given moment, I can think about, let's just pick one of my friends, a girl I used to be very, very close to, Esther, and I can sit and I can picture her and I can have a whole conversation and we can be laughing. I mean, some of the laughs we used to have, and just talking about it now, you can probably hear the joy that's coming through, and she's not even here. And so she isn't giving me that feeling. And equally, I can think of someone, or I can have a conversation with somebody and have an argument and be angry and be annoyed and be upset, and they're not even here. And so for me, it's like exploring, if that's as possible in this moment, what about when there really is someone there and, they're saying something and I'm in my head going, they've upset me, or I'm angry with them. In the same way, that feeling isn't coming from them, it's coming from me being in my head and having a story about what they should or shouldn't be doing. Like in that example I gave earlier, when somebody was telling me they were going to do something, and in my head I'm like, don't do it. That person's annoyed me because they're going to do something I don't want them to. I'm annoyed because I'm thinking they shouldn't do something that they want to do. And it's just, for me, this is about having a look and seeing the places where your feelings are clearly not coming from another person, and starting to see, on a scale of say 1 to 10, how many times you can see that it isn't that other person, and just keep exploring that. And before you know it, you'll be jogging, and then you'll be all out running, because this conversation, it is an exploration.
Absolutely.
It's just starting to see what you can see, not just taking our word for it. And there's so many places we can see this, and just keep looking, because it keeps, it keeps expanding and keeps changing your life. So
that was life-changing for me, that kind of realization that somebody didn't have to be in the room for me to feel all sorts of ways about them. And equally, when they were there, if it was someone I'd got a story about that I was totally in love with, sometimes when I was with them I was, and sometimes when I was with them I wasn't. And it's like, what's going on here? How can that fluctuate and go up and down? And the way that fluctuates and goes up and down is because that feeling comes from us, not them. But absolutely, it is just play with that for yourself and absolutely see what you see. So next week on our show, we have a question. What is it that causes us to worry so much? Oh, I used to be such a worrier. Worry over everything. So we're going to be having a look at that. And what is it that causes us to be like that?
Yeah, and then the topic next week is desperation versus inspiration.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah.
So if you are interested in any of the other stuff we do, the relationship school, summer school, or our mentoring or anything, there is information below this video to find out about it if you would like to work with us more. And hopefully we will see you somewhere soon.
Take care.
Take care and have a great week. Bye.